The very air hums with a different frequency now. A subtle shift, a tightening of invisible threads that govern not just our days, but the very trajectory of our lives. It feels like a vast, ancient mechanism has begun to turn once more, its gears meshing with a sound that resonates deep in our bones. This is a moment of reckoning, a turning point where the architecture of fate, long dormant, is reasserting its formidable presence. We stand on the precipice, sensing the inevitable pull of cycles closing, of patterns reawakening. At the heart of this reassertion lies a figure of immense, almost primal fear, Saturn. Or as the ancients knew him, Kronos, the devourer of time, the sky father who consumed his own children. His shadow stretches long across millennia of myth, whispering of discipline, of restriction, of the inevitable passage from youth to dust. He appears in ancient scripture as a stern judge, in esoteric traditions as the gatekeeper of hidden knowledge, and in the landscapes of our own psyches as the formidable shadow we often try to outrun. Saturn is the alchemical teacher, though his lessons are often brutal. He ushers in the inner winter, a period of enforced stillness and introspection. He is the harbinger of aging, of loss, the slow erosion of our youthful illusions. Within his crucible, the false self, the carefully constructed persona, is relentlessly torn down, exposed to the cold, hard truth of our limitations. Yet, it is precisely in this dismantling, in the stark acceptance of what we cannot be or do, that a profound paradox emerges. For it is only by embracing the boundaries Saturn erects, by acknowledging the confines of our mortal existence, that the possibility of transcendence is born. The integration of Saturn's stern wisdom reveals that the very limitations he imposes are the fertile soil from which true growth, true freedom, and the acceptance of our deepest selves can finally arise. The film will close by turning this formidable power inward, demonstrating how our deepest delays, our most persistent anxieties, and even our most devastating collapses are not random misfortunes, but the slow, deliberate grinding of fate, realigning us with our truest, most essential pattern. The arrival of this great clock, this cosmic timepiece, is not announced with fanfare. It is a subtle creeping into consciousness, a dawning awareness that the steady tick of seconds has begun to carry a new weight. It is the Saturnian hour, a potent reminder that our lives unfold according to rhythms far older and grander than our immediate desires. We sense this shift in the quiet moments, in the pauses between breaths, in the way the world seems to slow just enough for us to notice its inherent structure. This structure is not arbitrary. It is the painstaking work of an architect who understands that form is born from constraint. The universe itself, in its most fundamental laws, operates under principles of limitation. Gravity binds us, time restricts us, and the very physical laws of existence dictate what is possible and what remains forever beyond our grasp. This is the domain of Saturn, the cosmic disciplinarian, whose influence teaches us the profound truth that without edges, without boundaries, there can be no distinct shape, no coherent reality. The steady, inexorable movement of the great clock compels us to confront our own finite nature. It points to a deep, perhaps frightening truth, that our journey through existence is not a boundless expanse, but a path carefully delineated by the constraints that Saturn embodies. This understanding is not a cause for despair, but a call to a deeper wisdom. It is an invitation to recognize that the very limitations we often rail against are, in fact, the scaffolding of our being, the necessary architecture for any meaningful construction of self. This immense clock, however, points towards a more profound, echoing cycle of return. Kronos, the child-eating father at the heart of myth, embodies the most profound fears surrounding time and authority. He is the primal force that consumes his own progeny, a chilling metaphor for the way time itself devours youth, ambition, and ultimately, life. His hunger is insatiable, a reflection of a universe that operates on principles of creation and destruction, of constant renewal through sacrifice. In ancient tales, Kronos' reign was a terrifying testament to the power of the patriarch, a figure who feared his own overthrow and sought to maintain control by any means necessary, even through the annihilation of his own lineage. This primal image resonates deeply within the human psyche, tapping into latent anxieties about paternal authority and the relentless march of time. We see echoes of Chronos in the societal structures that demand conformity, in the relentless pressure to perform, and in the fear of being consumed by forces beyond our understanding or control. His act of devouring his children is not merely a gruesome tale. It represents the profound internal conflict we experience when the very forces meant to nurture and protect us instead seek to absorb and erase our emerging individuality. The myth of Chronos serves as a stark reminder of our vulnerability to the passage of time and the powerful, sometimes destructive, forces that shape our lives. It is in this fear of consumption, in the dread of being swallowed by an unyielding father time, that we begin to sense the overwhelming power of the archetype. But Chronos' act, while terrifying, also holds a hidden key, a promise of a cyclical return within his very act of consumption. This cyclical return is most powerfully symbolized by the ring of Saturn. The ring of Saturn, that majestic, ancient halo, carries within its circular embrace a profound alchemical secret, the principle of return. It is a visible representation of a cosmic law, a constant reenactment of beginnings and endings, of birth and death, woven into a perpetual loop. This is the Ouroboros made manifest, the serpent that eats its own tail, symbolizing eternal recurrence and the cyclical nature of all things. When we gaze upon Saturn's ring, we are not just observing a celestial body. We are witnessing the grand design of rebirth, the eternal dance of transformation that governs the universe and our own souls. Within this celestial circle lies the echo of Chronos' myth. The act of devouring, which Chronos performed with dread and aggression, is here revealed as a natural, necessary precursor to a new beginning. The children are not lost forever. They are reabsorbed, their essence retained, to be reconstituted and reborn in a new form. This ring then becomes a powerful symbol of spiritual economy, where nothing is truly lost, only transmuted, reformed, and sent back into the grand cycle of existence, mirroring the seasons, the phases of the moon, and our own life trajectories. Understanding this ring as the circle of return offers a radical reorientation of our perspective on endings. Instead of viewing them as final defeats, as moments of absolute cessation, we are invited to see them as integral parts of a continuous unfolding. This archetypal pattern of perpetual regeneration, etched in the heavens, whispers a promise of renewal even in the face of apparent obliteration, hinting that our own perceived endings are merely the prelude to a profound re-emergence. This cyclical truth points to the fundamental role of limitations in shaping our destiny. Limitation is not an enemy, it is the architect of form. Without boundaries, without the crucible of constraint, reality would dissolve into an undifferentiated chaos, a formless void. Consider the sculptor. It is only by chipping away at the raw marble, by imposing limits on its potential, that a recognizable form emerges. The sculptor's chisel, much like Saturn's scythe, carves definition and beauty out of an unformed mass. This is the essential work of limitation, the divine principle that gives shape and meaning to our existence, preventing us from becoming lost in the infinite. Think of a seed pushing through the earth. Its growth is guided by the confines of the soil, by the pressure it must exert to break through the surface. These very restrictions, the darkness, the resistance of the earth, are what compel the seed to develop a strong root system and a resilient stem. The limitations it encounters are not impediments to its becoming, but the very forces that enable its becoming, shaping it into the robust plant it is destined to be. This is the subtle, often unappreciated genius of Saturn's influence. The universe operates on this principle at every level. The laws of physics, the cycles of nature, the structures of society, all are manifestations of limitation. These boundaries, far from being restrictive imprisonments, are the intricate frameworks that allow for differentiation, for the emergence of order, and for the very possibility of experience. Every form, every entity, every aspect of our reality owes its distinct existence to the invisible architect of limitation, guiding us toward our own inherent structure. This architect of form, however, ultimately leads us to a profound confrontation with the nature of becoming. We often associate the idea of becoming with a limitless expansion, a boundless striving towards an ever-receding horizon of potential. Yet within the deep currents of esoteric wisdom and ancient mythology, the path of becoming is inextricably linked to a place of profound finality, a space that mirrors the ultimate stillness of death. This is the tomb of becoming, not a place of literal demise, but an alchemical vessel, a symbolic zero point where all outward striving ceases and the inward journey truly begins. It is a place of surrender, a necessary descent into the dark earth of the soul. Imagine a seed buried deep. It is no longer a seed in the outward sense, but it is also not yet the plant it will become. It exists in a chrysalis state, a period of apparent inactivity that is, in fact, a time of intense internal transformation. This is the essence of the tomb of becoming. It is the period of gestation, the dark night of the soul, where the old self must be relinquished entirely before the new can be born. Without this confrontation with annihilation, with the dissolution of the ego's false solidity, no true transformation can occur. This concept challenges our modern obsession with constant progress and outward achievement. It suggests that true growth is not achieved through relentless doing, but through a courageous embrace of not doing, of letting go, of allowing the forces of dissolution to work their ancient magic. The tomb of becoming is where the illusion of eternal youth and endless potential is shed, revealing the profound wisdom that lies in accepting our impermanence. But to truly understand this alchemical death, we must gaze into its deepest manifestation. The black sun, within the darkest recesses of the alchemical tradition, a peculiar paradox emerges. The Sol Niger, the black sun. This is not the familiar orb that bathes our world in golden light. It is a sun invisible, a source of radiant darkness, a star that burns with the cold fire of profound knowledge. The black sun represents the ultimate confrontation with the shadow, the acceptance of our own inner night. It is the point where conscious light is extinguished, not to be lost, but to be reoriented towards an inner illumination that arises from the deepest, most primal aspects of the psyche. This symbol speaks of a turning inward, a radical surrender of the familiar light of ego consciousness. It is the moment when the self, stripped of all its external validations and projected images, must face its own inherent darkness, its unacknowledged fears, its primal urges. The black sun is the heart of introspection, the furnace where the dross of the ego is burned away, leaving behind the pure, untarnished gold of the authentic self. It is the alchemical crucible where the false self is dissolved, making way for a light that originates from within rather than from without. Embracing the Sol Niger is not an act of despair, but an act of supreme courage. It is the understanding that true illumination does not come from accumulating more external light, but from integrating the primordial darkness that resides within us all. This dark star is the guiding principle of inner alchemy, the silent, powerful force that orchestrates the dissolution of the old and the eventual rebirth of the new from the ashes of the impossible. It is through this alchemical dissolution that we begin to understand the profound nature of delay. Delay, denial, collapse, these are not random misfortunes. They are the very gifts Saturn bestows, the subtle, often painful, communications from the cosmic architect. In our relentless pursuit of external validation and immediate gratification, we often become deafened to the universe's subtler whispers. These periods of enforced stillness, of forced pause, are Saturn's way of arresting our headlong rush, of forcing us to confront the foundational cracks in our self-constructed realities. They are the necessary interruptions that prevent us from building our lives on unstable ground. When we encounter delay, our initial reaction is frustration, a sense of being thwarted. We may feel like we are being punished, or that the universe is simply conspiring against us. But if we look closer, if we approach these moments with the reverence of the archivist, we can discern a deeper intelligence at play. This delay is a pause for recalibration, a cosmic editor demanding a rewrite, forcing us to re-examine our blueprints and ensure they are aligned with our truest essence, rather than with fleeting desires or external pressures. The denial and subsequent collapse that often follow these delays are not failures, but the inevitable consequence of ignoring Saturn's initial gentle nudge. It is as if the universe, having tried to guide us with a whisper, must resort to a thunderclap when its warnings go unheeded. These collapses, while devastating, are the ultimate Saturnian gift. They clear away the debris of false paths and superficial accomplishments, leaving behind the fertile ground for a genuine, authentic reconstruction. This profound clearing ritual points towards a deep, restorative observance. This necessary clearing, this dismantling of the false, leads us to a profound moment of rest, a sacred observance that echoes through the ages. It is the Sabbath of the soul, a time for sacred stillness, for a ceasing of the relentless churn of striving and doing. In many ancient traditions, the Sabbath was a divinely ordained pause, a day to step back from the world's demands and reconnect with the deeper truths of existence. It is a time when the soul, weary from its outward excursions, can find refuge and renewal in the quiet sanctuary of being. The Sabbath is more than just a day off. It is an archetypal imperative. It is the recognition that constant activity, without periods of profound rest and integration, leads to burnout and spiritual depletion. It is in this sacred pause that we allow the lessons of Saturn, the wisdom of limitation, to truly sink in. We cease the outward motion and turn inward, allowing the energies that have been stirred to settle and coalesce, much like sediment in a still pond. This enforced inaction is where true rejuvenation occurs, where the soul can begin to mend and prepare for its next cycle. Within this stillness lies a deeper understanding of our place in the grand cosmic order. It is a recognition that our efforts, while important, are part of a larger rhythm dictated by forces beyond our immediate control. The Sabbath of the soul is a humble acknowledgement of these forces, a surrender to the ebb and flow of life, allowing ourselves to be carried rather than constantly fighting the current. This commitment to observed rest reveals a cosmic law that governs our very experience of existence. This law is intimately tied to the mechanics of karma as understood by ancient wisdom. The Gnostic Saturn, known not as Chronos, but as an archon, a ruler of the material realm, introduces a chilling perspective on our existence. In this view, Saturn becomes the gatekeeper of karma, a celestial bureaucrat who meticulously records every debt and obligation, ensuring that the cosmic scales remain balanced. He is the enforcer of a deterministic universe, where every action, every thought, reverberates through time, creating a chain of cause and effect that can bind us to cycles of suffering and rebirth. This is the stern justice of the material plane, a prison built by our own past deeds. This archonic Saturn is a figure of immense, cold power, concerned not with individual liberation, but with the impeccable functioning of the cosmic machine. He is the embodiment of fate as a rigid, unyielding structure, a labyrinth from which escape seems impossible. The Gnostic view suggests that our entrapment in this material world, with its endless cycles of desire and disappointment, is a consequence of our ignorance of our true spiritual nature, a blindness that keeps us tethered to the dictates of these karmic laws. He is the architect of our perceived limitations, the one who ensures we pay for every misstep. The influence of this archon is felt in every delay, every setback, every moment we feel trapped by circumstances beyond our control. He is the silent presence that whispers of consequences, of dues to be paid, of the inescapable weight of past actions. This vision of Saturn is a stark, unflinching portrayal of the forces that shape our destiny, a reminder that our choices have profound and lasting repercussions. Understanding this potent force of karma sets the stage for a deeply personal reckoning. Saturn's return is not merely a calendar event, it is a profound, deeply personal mirror held up to our souls. Occurring roughly every 29.5 years, this celestial transit invites us to confront the incompletion that resides within us, the unfinished business, the dreams deferred, the potential left unexplored. It is a moment when the universe demands an honest appraisal of our lives, asking, have we honored the commitments we made to ourselves, or have we allowed the distractions and demands of the world to pull us off course? This is the ultimate check-in, the cosmic performance review. When Saturn returns to the degree it occupied at our birth, it brings with it a potent karmic reckoning. Old patterns, unresolved issues, and the consequences of our past decisions resurface with undeniable force. It is a period of intense self-reflection, often marked by significant life changes, challenges, and profound insights. The weight of our unlived lives, the echoes of our choices, press in, demanding our attention. This is not a time for superficial solutions, but for a deep, honest engagement with the totality of our being. This return serves as a stark reminder that time is not an infinite resource. It is a potent catalyst for growth, urging us to face our limitations, to acknowledge our incomplete selves, and to take responsibility for the direction of our journey. The mirror of Saturn's return reflects not just our external achievements, but the internal landscape of our souls, revealing precisely where we have fallen short of our true potential and where we can still find the courage to mend and to become whole. This powerful reflection points towards a silent, unseen edifice that influences our lives. In the psyche's hidden architecture, there stands an invisible tower, a structure built not of stone or steel, but of ingrained beliefs, unconscious patterns, and the accumulated weight of unacknowledged truths. This is Saturn's tower, a solitary edifice that represents our deepest fears, our most ingrained limitations, and the self-imposed restrictions that prevent us from reaching our full potential. It is a sanctuary of isolation, a fortress of denial, where we often retreat from the world and from ourselves, lest our vulnerabilities be exposed. This invisible tower is the embodiment of our internal limitations, the high walls we erect around our hearts and minds to protect ourselves from perceived harm. Within its confines, we may feel secure, yet we are also profoundly imprisoned, cut off from the vital energies of connection, growth, and authentic self-expression. The weight of this tower is the accumulated burden of our unresolved issues, the silent suffering of a soul that longs to break free, but fears the unknown consequences of stepping outside its familiar, albeit confining, walls. The presence of this tower dictates the very structure of our experience, shaping our perceptions and influencing our actions in unseen ways. It is the silent architect of our limitations, the unseen force that can hold us captive, whispering doubts and fueling anxieties. To dismantle this invisible edifice requires an immense act of courage, a willingness to confront the foundations upon which it stands, and to begin the slow, arduous process of rebuilding. This profound dismantling, however, leads to the forging of true inner governance. The iron crown of inner authority is not a symbol of external domination, but of self-mastery. It represents the culmination of Saturn's stern lessons, the hard-won sovereignty that arises from confronting and integrating our deepest limitations. This crown is forged in the fires of discipline, tempered by the acceptance of responsibility, and adorned with the jewels of self-awareness. It is the silent recognition of our own power, not to control others, but to govern ourselves with unwavering integrity and profound wisdom. When we ascend to this inner authority, we do not seek to impose our will upon the world. Instead, we learn to align our will with a deeper, more universal order. We begin to understand that true power lies not in external force, but in the quiet strength of self-possession, in the ability to navigate life's challenges with grace and resilience. The Iron Crown signifies that we have accepted the fundamental limitations of existence, and in that acceptance, we have discovered the boundless strength of our own inner life. This is the ultimate goal of Saturn's rigorous training: to equip us with the tools for self-governance, to crown us with the profound authority that comes from knowing and accepting ourselves, shadow and light, strength and vulnerability. It is the quiet reign of a soul that has learned to trust its own inner compass, guided by an unwavering sense of purpose and an unshakable commitment to its own truth. This hard-won authority is inextricably linked to the fundamental mechanism of our inner lives. Karma, Chronos, and the clock inside the psyche form an inseparable trinity, binding our present experience to the inescapable tides of time and consequence. Chronos, the relentless flow of chronological time, is the river upon which our lives are carried. Karma, the intricate web of cause and effect, dictates the currents and eddies within that flow, shaping our journey with the accumulated momentum of past actions. And the clock inside the psyche is our internal perception of this intricate dance, registering each tick as a moment of choice, each tock as a consequence realized. This internal clock is not merely a passive observer. It is an active participant, constantly interpreting the subtle shifts in our energetic landscape. It registers the weight of karmic debts, the acceleration or deceleration of our destiny, and the ever-present pressure of time's passage. When we are out of alignment with our soul's true pattern, this internal clock can feel like a torturous tormentor, each beat a reminder of unrealized potential or unaddressed regrets. The true mastery of this trinity lies not in trying to stop the clock or escape karma, but in learning to work with their inherent rhythms. It involves cultivating an awareness of how our choices resonate through time, and how the passage of Chronos offers us repeated opportunities for correction and growth. To understand this internal clock is to understand the profound interconnectedness of our actions, our temporal existence, and the unfolding tapestry of our destiny, a destiny often challenged by a primal archetype of pure freedom. Saturn and the Fool, two archetypes seemingly at opposite ends of the spectrum, engage in a silent, eternal war for the soul's allegiance. Saturn, the embodiment of structure, discipline, and the stark realities of limitation, calls us towards responsibility, to the slow, deliberate building of a life grounded in experience and wisdom. The Fool, on the other hand, represents pure potential, unadulterated innocence, and the boundless spirit of spontaneity and new beginnings, daring us to leap into the unknown with innocent abandon. This is not a war of outright conquest, but a perpetual tension, a gravitational pull and push that shapes our journey. Saturn warns the Fool of the dangers of recklessness, of the inevitable consequences that follow a life lived entirely without foresight or grounding. Conversely, the Fool reminds Saturn of the stagnation that can arise from rigid adherence to rules, of the vital spark of life that can be extinguished by an excess of caution. Each archetype holds a crucial truth, and our equilibrium rests in navigating their contrasting demands. The struggle between Saturn and the Fool is the fundamental dynamic of growth. It is the dance between the desire for security and the yearning for freedom, between the wisdom of experience and the courage of the novice. To be fully alive, we must learn to heed the warnings of Saturn while embracing the liberating spirit of the Fool, finding a balance that allows for both structure and spontaneity, responsibility and wonder. This profound inner negotiation often requires facing our deepest fears of being left utterly alone. The rites of abandonment are the fiery trials through which we are stripped of our false attachments and our clinging to the past. They are the Saturnine initiations that force us to confront the deepest fears of solitude, of being cast adrift without anchor or guide. These moments, often perceived as catastrophic losses, are, in fact, sacred ceremonies of release, designed to sever the cords that bind us to what no longer serves our highest evolution, preparing us for a more authentic and unburdened existence. Abandonment, in its most brutal form, is the universe's way of clearing space. It is the painful pruning of branches that have grown wild and unproductive, allowing the tree to direct its vital energy towards new growth. These rites can manifest as the loss of relationships, the collapse of careers, the dissolution of deeply held beliefs, or simply a profound sense of isolation that forces us to turn inward and discover our own intrinsic worth, independent of external validation. It is in these moments of utter aloneness that our deepest reserves of strength are often revealed. The embrace of these rites is not an act of masochism, but an act of profound faith in the process of transformation. It is the understanding that even in the desolation of abandonment, seeds of new beginnings are being sown. This painful shedding, this voluntary or involuntary relinquishment, opens up a space for the emergence of a more resilient, self-sufficient, and ultimately, more authentic self, paving the way for a different kind of inner landscape. Depression, in its deepest, most debilitating form, can be understood as Saturn's veil. It is a shroud of existential weight, a profound stillness that descends upon the soul, seemingly extinguishing all light and hope. This is not a fleeting sadness, but a pervasive darkness, a state where the usual vibrancy of life is muted and the future appears as an abyss of futility. Saturn's veil is the manifestation of a profound spiritual winter, a time when all outward striving must cease and the soul is plunged into a deep, often terrifying introspection. Beneath this heavy veil, however, lies the potential for profound revelation. The stillness and withdrawal that characterize depression can, when approached with courage and a willingness to descend, become a crucible for transformation. It is in this enforced quietude, this stripping away of external distractions, that the soul is compelled to confront the foundational issues that have been ignored, the unintegrated shadows, the core wounds that have been festering beneath the surface of everyday life. The descent into this darkness, though terrifying, is where true alchemy begins. When Saturn's veil descends, it signals a critical turning point. It is a divine intervention, a somber invitation to pause, to surrender, and to allow the slow, arduous work of inner reconstruction to take place. This period of profound darkness, though agonizing, can ultimately lead to a renewed appreciation for the light, a deeper understanding of one's own resilience, and the eventual emergence from the inner winter into a more grounded and authentic spring of being. This profound internal shift can lead to the dissolution of an entire temporal framework. The collapse of false timelines is the necessary consequence of Saturn's slow grinding. It is the dismantling of the illusions we've built around our lives, the carefully constructed narratives that no longer align with our deeper truth. These are the moments when what we thought was solid ground reveals itself to be a mirage, when the future we've meticulously planned dissolves into dust. This is the grand demolition, the Saturnine clearing of the board, making way for a new, more authentic construction. When our perceived timelines collapse, it feels like a profound loss of control, a jarring disruption of everything we believed to be stable. Careers falter, relationships dissolve, and our carefully crafted identities crumble. Yet this is not an arbitrary demolition. It is the universe's precise intervention, removing the scaffolding of a life that was built on a foundation of external validation, unexamined expectations, or unconscious fears, rather than on the bedrock of our soul's true purpose. This collapse is a liberation, albeit a painful one. It is the shedding of a skin that has become too tight, too constricting. By allowing these false timelines to fall away, we create the necessary void, the empty space where something far more real and enduring can finally take root. This profound dismantling of the illusionary future prepares us for an ultimate embrace of our existential reality. Accepting Saturn is not an act of resignation, but the final, most crucial step towards sovereignty. It is a courageous descent into the heart of our limitations, a willing embrace of the shadow, the weight, and the undeniable reality of our finite existence. This is the ultimate alchemical process, where the perceived obstacles become the very tools of our liberation. By truly accepting the limitations Saturn imposes, we paradoxically discover an unimagined expanse of inner freedom. This acceptance is not about surrender to despair, but about a profound recalibration of our relationship with reality. It is the understanding that true power does not lie in overcoming our limits, but in harmonizing with them, in working with the inherent structures of existence rather than fighting against them. When we stop railing against the inevitable passage of time, against the nature of aging, against the finite boundaries of our being, we free up immense amounts of energy that can be redirected towards authentic self-creation and profound inner peace. The true sovereign is not the one who commands the world, but the one who commands themselves. And that inner sovereignty is only truly forged in the crucible of Saturn's relentless, yet ultimately loving, discipline. By embracing the descent, by acknowledging the tomb, by facing the shadow of the black sun, we prepare ourselves not for an ending, but for a rebirth into a state of grace, a reign over our own internal kingdom, where limitations become the very architects of our liberation.